We say what they can't radio.
Welcome to SoulShare, a conversation focused on love, intimacy, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence. This is a different kind of relationship dialogue for those who want to make the shift from the ego-driven to more intimate, spirit-nurturing partnerships that satisfy. Because that's what Black love is. Black love is powerful. Black love is soulful. Black love is a love that you can feel. Give thanks.
Greetings, I'm Sesheta Khepra, the Intimacy Junkie, and this is episode 2 of SoulShare. And today I have
Jenya, event production extraordinaire. That's pretty much it.
and
Angie Monroe.
hey, before we get started, I need to shout out my son, Ryan. Today he turns 18 and he's into adulthood. Ryan. Shout out, Ryan. Yes. So, okay, last week you guys weren't here, but what we discussed was the R. Kelly docuseries, Surviving R. Kelly, as well as the Very Young Girls documentary. So, are there any thoughts that you have on that? You know, I know you saw both.
No, I actually did not watch the R. Kelly docuseries because I don't need that trauma in my life. I feel like there's certain things you just don't need to watch to introduce certain trauma to yourself. It's very traumatic to watch young girls going through something like that. However, I did watch Very Young Girls. And it was just, interesting to watch how their experience, how these girls were like right around New York, right around the neighborhood where I live now, that were just snatched up off the street and, just being ignored by law enforcement, especially when parents are coming to look for them. It's just a really disgusting experience. It's just disgusting to experience that. So.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted everybody to watch both the documentary as well as the docuseries is so that they can see the parallels that exist between R. Kelly, Surviving R. Kelly, as alongside, this documentary, which I think was done maybe in about 2007 or something like that.
About that.
And it was like the similarities with as R. Kelly and the pimp tactics and the ages of the girls. And like you said, in the documentary where the parents came looking for, trying to claim their children, same thing that happened in the R. Kelly, docuseries where parents came, coming to look and trying to get their children and the difficulties that they're having. It was uncanny, the parallels that exist between the two. And it's almost, so when I started last week, I wanted to be clear that I didn't want to have the race conversation because I don't feel that R. Kelly is comparable, to a Catholic priest. I don't feel he's comparable to, what Harvey Weinstein's doing or any of these other, white men are doing what he's doing.
See, but the reason why I could see someone bringing in race is because if these were white girls, it would have been on the headlines. Like, there would have been officers breaking down doors to make sure they get out. So it's a problem when you're when you are of a disenfranchised population. So this can happen to immigrant girls. Like anything non-white is usually what law enforcement don't care about. So I can see people bringing in race, but I don't compare it to like them being a priest or Harvey Weinstein. Like, it's not the same. Harvey Weinstein didn't have people, hostage in a room. Like, he was doing shit he wasn't supposed to, but he didn't have girls hostage. So.
That's the racial conversation. Is about the.
There's another part because R. Kelly, even though his experiences with child molestation came when he was younger, he still got into an industry that feeds off of it also. So all the producers, all the label heads, you got Clive Davis, you got, I don't know the other names, but most of these owners of these businesses, they're Jewish. They'll take the kids, they have them going under desks, they got them as sex slaves, they have, all these different parts in these studios. So he gets into this industry and he goes right, and he fits right in. And this industry allows him to bring all the young girls in.
Speaking of Jewish, right? Did you?
I have my family. I have a lot of family. But you know what I'm talking about.
You know, speaking of Jewish, did you notice when they in the Very Young Girls documentary when they had the class, the John's class?
Yeah.
The amount of Hasidic Jewish men
Oh,
that
that's not
was
surprising.
in that
That's
class
not surprising.
picking up young
you walk
girls.
down Eastern Parkway when them young kids are out there. All they're doing is trying to bag women, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed. Like I've had an old Jewish man approach me. I think I was like 20 at the time, to ask me if I was looking for work. Like, mind you, I'm literally waiting for someone. I was downtown Brooklyn waiting for someone.
Wait, is that code to try to?
Yes. What, are you serious? Yes. They do this shit all the time. Like
my friends and I on the blanket, they came and they're asking, they're soliciting.
Yeah,
They're
like
asking
they
us
do this to black women
their wives
of any
at home.
race, and they'll pay you.
Yeah.
They'll pay you out the fucking wazoo for that shit too. Like,
And you know
they'll
how?
pay
Like,
you
we
for
not
that.
here to
And
put
how do you know that? I'm just joking.
I mean, I know because this is not the first time hearing about them. Like, I know of it not only because someone approached me, but like I've had conversations with other people before. Like, especially like people who own like apartments. They know that, like, say like a black woman can't afford her rent, she's late on her rent. Like, they'll solicit you for services so they can like cut part of the rent for that month.
Wow.
They do that shit all the time. Like, I've had so many discussions with friends about this stuff. Like, they do this all the time. They're gross. They won't marry you, but they'll fuck the shit out of you.
It's just that
Yeah.
there's more of them in position,
So-
although it's an authoritative, like,
Exactly.
it's an abusive
And then they
authority,
always have
so
cash.
It's not always a Jewish that's in authority.
Of course,
Take
of
Quincy
course,
Jones.
of course.
Take Quincy Jones. He talks about it. So it's not, and then it's also the so that's the only racial context where I would take it, because I know that they owned all the labels at the time when R. Kelly came in. There were really no black-owned labels. You know, rock. Even when Jay-Z and when LL Cool J came out, and they were all signed with these labels, and when Rocketone came out, it was a part of these labels.
Right.
So they all followed the same format of these young girls, and they're trafficking these kids.
Right, exactly, and that's why to me it's more comparable to trafficking as opposed to anything else. And it was just, and I wanted to keep it in that context. And when we're talking about what R. Kelly was doing, it's like, no, it's not. It's what he's doing is pimping the tactics, even
He's grooming.
He's the conditioning, the grooming.
Call me daddy.
Like, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like all of that stuff. And it was just it was eerie, and it was really, really creepy. And I just, and the next aspect of it was like the fact that he had all these people around him that was enabling him, and nobody was holding him accountable for what he did, and everybody helped him, and I guess that's part of I don't want to say it's part of the bro code, but you know what I mean. And it's like,
I don't think it's just a bro code. Right. I think he's the breadwinner of the group, so a lot of people will do things in silence because they're getting paid for it. So if they're getting money off of it, they could turn a blind eye to all of the nasty things they're doing. They might think like on the end, like, oh shit, like this guy's doing crazy things, but they getting money. Their bills are paid.
Where's the level of integrity? They had that producer.
They didn't have any level of integrity.
But that's the
they
thing.
Did not.
It's like really, like people are really that warped by money, and it's like, I mean, of course we know that.
Religion.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Because when they're in this industry, they know it's the devil. His mother would say he would call it the devil's music. He knows he's performing music that's not. It's not gospel, so everything else is the devil's music. Even to any other religion, it's the same thing. And so they know already that they're on that side.
And I have to go on record with saying this: I do not understand why people insist that R. Kelly is a genius and is so. I don't find his music
catchy music.
His music, I don't find his music creative
I guess
at all.
That's what the genius is like he creates music that's played everywhere. So that's a genius behind it.
Played everywhere, like what?
Like weddings, bar mitzvahs, like everything. Like you go to any black party, like usually what starts the party is R. Kelly music, especially if they're playing American music. It's usually that's how you start with R. Kelly slow jams when people are entering in. So at the same time, he's played everywhere.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you may not have it it may not be in your circle, but at the same time, it's played very often. Like you go to certain events and parties that like fit in what you want to do. like, and in a circle of people that you will always be with. So when you step out of that, R. Kelly's played everywhere. So I get why people could call him a musical genius, and he's also written for several artists, but I mean, it's not. I don't think you lose. Like, you're not losing anything by not listening to his music. Like, you're not.
I just never.
It's not the end of the world.
No, but I just never found his music creative. Like, even before all of this came out, and even before the tapes came out, because I was an adult when the tapes came out, and I saw the videotapes, and even prior to that, I never thought R. Kelly was all of that, because I find his music is like very sexually graphic. Now, not that
people love that,
That's no, of course. I mean, who doesn't? Yeah. But I like it done in a certain kind of way. You know what I mean? So it's like you have highly sexually charged music like the Isley Brothers, Prince. You understand? But I find those artists more creative than R. Kelly. To me, and because I'm into lyrics and how things are written, I found his thing elementary.
You're into lyricism. Not everybody is. Everybody just want a good tune and some words that flow with it.
Right.
So majority of people listening to music don't.
Together. He had an ear for music where he can, listen to something and play it back, because he played so well. He focused so well on that art. Yeah. So like in the studios and in the music classes, you have everyone praising him because he was a quick study.
I'd rather praise.
See, that's not something you don't. That's something you don't. That's something you don't care about.
It's
like
looking at Andy Warhol.
Of course, I care about
Andy Warhol pop art after you're looking at Monet or something. Yeah. You look at Andy Warhol. That's not art, because he's using junk and he's recycling it. To me, everybody after, like R. Kelly, in the 80s and on, they're recycling everything with the mixing, taking samples from everywhere, making it a mashup and making new music out of it. R. Kelly kind of orchestrated all these. He was almost like a conductor with all of this music that he was exposed to. And then you gotta look at being
in that era. I would have rather Teddy Riley than R. Kelly.
Well,
you understand?
Where he got it from, didn't he? He picked up their style. He picked up
exactly. That's why R. Kelly wasn't original. You understand?
He wasn't original.
And that's why. And this is why I don't understand why people make such a big deal. It's like R. Kelly, there's nothing special about him.
What it is? It's a matter of who is like the main person of your era, right? So like Teddy Riley, like people who like praise R. Kelly, Teddy Riley might be a little too old for that generation. So you got to keep that in mind. Like, keep it in mind, like even younger generation who may be like praising, like, I can't think of a male singer. Oh, maybe like Chris Brown. Like, oh, Chris Brown is a musical genius. That's of their era. Like, so that's the thing. Is like you gotta keep exactly, and he's also multi-talented.
He could write.
But and you also got to keep in mind that was literally R. Kelly for people of that era. Like he could write, he could sing. Like, I mean, he wasn't a dancer, he wasn't a performer, but like he would have ladies up there throwing their panties. Like that's what was attractive to people at that time. So it may not be for you, but you are not the majority of everybody else.
Of course.
I get what you're saying, and I'm not here to cape for R. Kelly. Like, absolutely not. Like, we could do without him.
No, but that's what I'm, that's basically what my point is. Yeah. It's like the people that I see that's caping for him, and I'm just like, but why? When even during his era, there was way more talented, artists than him. That I don't. It's like R. Kelly has never made my playlist. He's never made a playlist
for you,
because he was the bad boy.
But there are plenty of bad boys. You understand what I'm saying?
That's real bad boy.
It's like
really doing
it. His music has always been trashy to me. It's just like he's been trashed from the very beginning.
The problem is a lot of people who are fans of like artists or anyone in the industry is like people aren't very good at separating the person from their artistry. So that's the problem. Is like people are like, oh my God, like just like with like say Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was a people that a lot of young black men looked up to because they didn't necessarily have a father figure. That was a father figure on TV, but then to turn around like he's doing all this other shit in his secret life. And that's what the problem is. People are not good at separating the person and what they do from their artistry. That's why people can be out here arguing for him, but he's trash. Like, it's not, I don't think his music is that big of a deal to ignore all the disgusting things that he's been doing. And that's the reason why I didn't watch the documentaries, because it's not the first time hearing about it. It's just they brought out a documentary. We've been heard about this.
Right.
But they've been heard about him driving around.
Right, exactly.
Like, been heard about him riding around high schools.
And I said
trying
this in the last show,
to
people
get
still
high
have
school
it.
girls.
You know,
Like,
people still
I think
have
that's
the
crazy.
thing. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, and the thing about it is, it's like, I don't even think that, you know, it's like, I just don't understand why people have to cape for him. And it's just like, because his work is so unnecessary. It's his, and I guess, you know, people are saying that I needed to see the documentary because I needed to hear it from the women's mouth. And because when somebody gets the courage to tell their story, they want people to listen. You understand what I mean? And listening to people tell their stories encourages other people to open up and share their stories. So I needed to hear it from their perspective. You know what I mean? The tapes that came out, you know what I mean? That was the tapes that he made. So it's at the angles that he wanted and the things that, you know what I mean? And, and it's unbeknownst.
She also testified in court. So this was way back. But like, this was way back when he was on trial for, you know, for the sex tape. Like, she also testified in court at the time. So it's like, that's why I didn't go back. I didn't want to go back to it.
It was hurtful when she did that, when she was like, you know, she's not going to testify against him, and the parents were fine. You know, everything was
everyone's fine with that because
and who got paid $100 for that? Killed me. Like,
I didn't.
$100 to stay quiet. I think it was one of the parents. I forgot.
Yeah, and I think
that's a problem.
And I think a lot of people don't have the courage to come out and stand trial and face it, and it takes a long time for you to actually do that. So I think that their refusal to go to trial and settle out of court is because she didn't want to face the public. You know what I mean? Because it's embarrassing, and sometimes because, like I said,
with much more clout as far as the mob, as far as like gangsters in this area. I mean, they still protect him, so the people are very afraid of coming against him. And
then also you got to consider they're from a vulnerable population, like, and that's the same thing with like very young girls. Like, these are vulnerable. They come from vulnerable experiences. So like, poor family, poor parentage, like they're not both parents in their lives. That's a similar experience of the girls that he had bring into his home. So it's like you have poor parents who are like, it's either I let my daughter go or I can actually feed the rest of my kids.
Or you have rich parents who felt like, oh, we got this because we know this, we know that, and she's gonna be fine, and she's smart.
You have the monetary aspect. Then you also have the aspect of where it's just the house is troubled because they had the couple who's, you know, the couples who where they came from a 2-parent household, and it's like. So I think it's sometimes with maybe in the 2-parent household, and you know, I don't want to make that judgment because it wasn't shown, but sometimes the house is troubled. So sometimes they feel that anything other than being in the house that they're in is the better option because there's so much drama that's going on in their homes, and it may not
maybe
necessarily
you might have
be
a better experience somewhere else.
Right, exactly. So it may not necessarily be a financial
I was hearing
thing.
the father. And it's sad because when you have so much faith in the justice system to say, hey, he was not found guilty. So we want to support our people. We're not going to turn our backs on him because he was never found guilty. You know, it could have all been a conspiracy and blah, blah, blah.
But
I think they're too smart sometimes. Too smart.
I think the only time men have faith in the justice system is when it comes to sex crimes. That's the only time Black men have faith in the any other time they don't trust it. But when it comes to sex crimes, oh yes, let all the facts come out. Let's in the shit until because they know the odds are fine. Right, and they know the odds are. That's the only time they have faith in the justice system is when it comes to sex crimes. And that's
if a lot of these people came up, they would have been found accessory. So that's why you heard everybody was quiet because they would have been accessory to whatever he was doing. If they were over 18, they would have had to go stand trial too.
But with the people around them that wasn't saying anything, and you had that one producer who said that, when he came into the studios, he saw all the young girls and that there were bedrooms all over the place in the studios, and he was so disturbed by it that he just couldn't work with him. It's like, where's everybody else with that level of integrity that look at an environment and say, you know what? I don't care how much money is involved. I'm not on board this. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, a lot of them do not exist.
And that's, and that is,
So.
and that is amazing to me, that, the way that people are so easily bought, and that they would sell out and they would sell their souls just for $1. You know what I mean? And that's
I think a lot of times in the industry, people are more willing to work with someone like R. Kelly, who they know and have witnessed doing like horrible things to girls. They'll be more willing to work with him than a gay person. Like a gay person in the industry.
But he abused
I've
boys
even
too.
heard.
He abused the boys too, but you
Well,
never
I
hear.
didn't hear about that. Yeah.
Oh,
But-
yeah.
I never heard about that.
To all his male, they're not saying anything about them, but they were all young. Everybody was young.
Because nobody wants to talk about that, but then there's that girl that he did kind of, she's now dressed as the boy and everything like that, and there were people that on social media that came out, and it was very well known in Chicago that he was picking up little boys too. And that's the thing all this time, because I've been talking about R. Kelly for years, sharing the material, sharing the court documentation, for years. And people, when you look into this, the people of Chicago knew exactly what was going on all the time, and he came up to the schools, and so you have all of the administration in the schools who's seeing and knowing that this is what was going on, and people just really turned a blind eye to all of this activity that was going on. And it's like, and I want to get off R. Kelly, and move on to the next topic, but this is, the segue that I want to get into it. It's like when you have friends, who are doing these really dark things, and it's like, how well do we know our friends and what it is that they're doing, and are we having these type of conversations with our friends about what is it that they're doing?
Thinking
And
of Dr. York now.
and holding
That
them.
happened to a lot of little girls, and
It's
if I had a friend I admire a lot, and they feel like they got that close to somebody that was so well respected, they're not gonna say when it started to happen that they were a little uncomfortable with, because it's their ego and their pride that's in there. Very sad thing that happened with Dr. York, similar to the R. Kelly stuff. Because like when you hear the older girl's testimony, one who the radio station, the radio host that started to see him, she was older. She had more sense, but she let it go so far that she couldn't. She started lying to her friends, lying to her family. What's going on? I'm fine. He's treating me great. You understand?
And why is that? Why can't we be honest with our closest friends that we're going through these type of situations, so that that we can get the help that we need, from the people who care about us. Like, why would you go through all of this by yourself? So why?
You were the strong one, and you were the one that they go to help for. So if you're gonna
if you're the strong friend experiencing something, usually you're not going to anyone. There's no one above you to go to. Like, you're the one that people go to.
If you say I fell, then they're gonna be like, then everything you told me, then you can't say anything to me anymore. Who are you?
Wow.
I mean, that's not my experience.
No, but I'm
I'll tell you
saying
that.
that just
That's
clicked,
not my
because I'm thinking about my own personal experience, where it's like I'm usually the one that everyone comes to for guidance. I'm usually the one, and it's like
when it's your turn.
When it's my turn, I'm looking for that.
Who's the person to go to?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they always say, like, check on your strong friend. So,
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, this is true. But it's like when I see that that meme that says check on your strong, it kind of doesn't sit well with me because I feel you should be checking up on everybody. You understand what I'm
I
saying?
get it.
And not just checking up on your, if you're all friends and that you have a circle of friends, everybody should be checking in with each other. You good? You good? You straight? Like, I will do, random checks and I just go around like, you all right? You good? Are you really, really good? You know what I mean? Sometimes I know I can even be annoying, you know what I mean? Because I've had, but this is usually with the guys though. But guys, I had one guy, he was just like, you're starting to annoy me. He's just like, why do you think I would lie about my well-being? You know what I mean? And I was just like,
Because this keeps going on though.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, also, being an intuitive empath, it's like, you can't lie to me. And I know when you're not, you know what I mean? I know when you're not good. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, and it was like, I knew that stuff wasn't good. And I was like, are you, trying to create that safe space for him to be able to, talk and speak without judgment. But, everybody's not open for that, no matter, even if you try to create that safe space for them to talk. If they're not ready, they're not ready.
Creating a safe space is also allowing them to come to you when they're ready. So you can't force it out of someone. Forcing it out of someone is not necessarily a safe space, especially if they're not the type of person to open up.
Correct.
So being vulnerable enough to open up, creating that environment where they're vulnerable enough to open up is part of creating a safe space. So
Right.
yeah. But I don't have the experience of I have very close relationships with my friends. So we have moments where we catch up. Like if it's been too long, it's been a month or whatever, we need to spend time and talk about what's going on in each person's plate. So I mean it takes a long time, I think, 'cause, I'm younger, so it takes a long time to kind of figure out who are the right people to have in your space that you can, share and be vulnerable with. Because over the time I've had people I've cut off because, I couldn't be my vulnerable self around them.
Right.
If I've had certain experiences and I tell them about it, they'll respond to me with judgment. So, and you figure out along the way when to weed those people out. I think now I'm very good with the girls that I hang out with. The girls and the guys that I hang out with. People who my guy friend is willing to share, him and his wife willing to share they almost got a divorce. That's something really, that's a deep thing to share with someone, especially if you're still working through it.
Right.
So, I have very good relationships with both my male and female friends. So
Yeah. And that's I was watching this show because actually it was somebody's post and they put up a post about this show called A Million Little Things. And so when I read this person's post and I was like, I need to watch this show. And when I watched the show, and it's about,
is that the show with Romani Malcolm?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. And it was just you have this group of friends and everybody's going through these real deep things, but nobody knows what their friends are going through. And it's you in these friendships and you really don't know they're suicidal, battling depression, problems in their marriages and all, having financial struggles and stuff like that. And people aren't sharing these type of things. So these are your closest team and they don't know what your real struggles are. And 2018, that's what I went through, a whole entire cleansing process. And I did a whole dump of friends and I did a whole purge because I was just I couldn't no more. Even long-term friendships, I had to wind up cutting off because I started to realize if these are not people who I can come to when I need to be vulnerable, and just because we're 20 years in, if I can't tell you, I'm stressed, and you know what I mean, and the financial burden, of carrying my family, or things like, caring for elderly parents, I'm struggling with, my depression and, I'm having anxieties to the point I'm getting panic attacks and whatever. If I can't sit down and have those conversations, then, you know what I mean? I need to evaluate the friendships, what I mean? It's this is not serving me, anymore. And, and I'm tired of reaching out to people. And it's I'm trying to be the friend that I want for myself.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And I'm giving you that level of friendship because that's the level of friendship that I want, but I'm not getting it. And it's just, and it's so, it's
a struggle.
Right, it
Yeah.
is. It is a struggle because people have up walls. People are afraid of being judged. So it's like, okay, so if they're afraid of being judged and they don't want to share intimate parts of themselves, you understand? They're not gonna make themselves available for you because it's like it puts them in a weird place.
Yeah.
So now I'm not getting the level of friendship that I need or that I want.
I mean, what's fair to look at is like love languages. A lot of times people look at love languages in terms of like a romantic partner. Those actually also exist in platonic relationships. So how you may want to receive a friend, somebody may not want to receive it the same way. So it's the same way you reaching out, you wanting to be that person, that may not be the way that they want to, do it. They may be the one that just wants to creep up when it's time, when I need a moment to a moment away from like the rest of life. That's when I can be with my friends and talk about all the different things I'm going through. But it's fair to look into that. Like I know I have friends that have done, love language tests like for like parents and stuff like that. So I think it's fair to do that with like close friends, just to know like how is it that they experience love or how is it they experience your friendship. So it's not universal. It's not a monolith for everybody. So it's fair to look into that.
I think in the last decade, we've been going through, in general, big shakeup of roles and role playing. And then on the we used to call it the underground. The people who, the secret parties, the secret societies, the people, the very well off people. This is where they get with the lower class, what would they call it? They would call it slumming. You're going to hang out in the lower, you're going to get your high, you're going to get, some good food, you're going to get the ethnic food, you're going to solicit, you're going to have, get into prostitution, you're going to get into taboo behavior and all of that stuff. In these last couple of decades, in the 90s and the 2010, it all got crazy. Like, the roles were all askew. Everything became ambiguous. There was no real set role. Do what you want to do. Be what you want to be. Madonna and blah, blah. R. Kelly, all these people that came out, this is Kim Kardashian, Jada and Will, they all are involved in this whole swing set, this whole swinger set. But this underground thing.
Right, but I'm talking about in terms of friendship and stuff, like, if you...
But the roles, that's what I'm saying. In your role it's this, it becomes every man for himself. Because now people are doing things that are taboo and that are getting them in trouble.
So they don't want nobody...
They can't talk about STDs. They can't talk about pregnancies unwanted. They can't
why?
talk.
But if you can't talk about that stuff with your friends,
it's a part of that whole culture of secrecy and being in the closet with stuff.
It's like if you can't talk about that stuff with your friends, you know what I mean? Like once upon a time, who are you going to that STD clinic with if not your homegirl? You know what I mean? That's who you're supposed to be. That's who you're supposed to be. That's the one who's supposed to be going to these places with you.
I've always had really we had a squad back in high school. So there'll be times we were cut a Friday and we all go to the clinic to go get tested because we all know we was having sex. So that means we're all gonna go together because we all want to make sure we all good too.
Exactly, and that's what it was. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what I'm trying to say. It's like now, it's like as you get adults and you have even more and deeper things, like you're taking on, like when I say right, and you're stressed and you're depressed and you're sometimes possibly suicidal. Now you may be on medication and you having panic attacks or it's like who are you
going to?
Right, who are you going to? What are you what are you doing? What your friends if you get into financial trouble, you should have that close network of people who can sit up there and help you.
Let's throw a box.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's if you have people like that around you. And then also it also depends on like your upbringing as well. If you're used to experience where even your parents, you've seen your parents, they try to do everything themselves. They didn't go to anyone else. You didn't visualize them going to anyone else.
I don't believe that. That
See,
and
but
the
that's the
community,
thing,
the
it's like-
community helped each other.
That's
Like
why
you're
the
right.
people are not
You're
doing
right.
being there for you. We came from a big family that they all got together. Everybody cook up. Everybody shared things, and this is where all that discussion happened. If
If that's not your experience, you may not be willing to share as
it's
much
not
with your
your-
friends as others who may have that came from that type of community
conditioning.
experience. So, I mean, I think it varies. Like some people also just don't want, vulnerability sometimes is seen as weakness. So, like, you just don't want to seem weak around your friends. Like, that's also a thing. I mean,
Who else
I
is supposed
don't.
to be? Who else is supposed
I
to be
agree.
weak?
Like-
Who else you supposed to be weak around? You understand what I'm
like-
Your
saying?
significant
Intuition is
other,
so
your
important.
romantic partner.
Right. But
So-
but you know what? Even before with romantic partners, there still has to have that base of friendship. So to
True.
me, friendship is always going to be the most significant relationship that you have, and everything comes from that. You know what I mean? So you're supposed to also be able to have that same level of intimacy with your friends that you can be vulnerable. We have right now, well, I mean, it's on hold for 3 weeks now where the government shut down. So a lot of our friends who work for the government, they may be in situations, you know what I mean? Are they able to come to their friends and say, like, I'm struggling? You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And it's just like where my friends, if I got it, you got it. If I know that you're struggling, because they've taken care of me. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take care of you. So, but you have to have that communication where you can, reach out and say, you know what, here, take this Cash App here. And even if you don't even say anything, just Cash App.
Right.
One of your homies some money, because even if you think that they just struggling and they not saying and they just too afraid to reach out, just Cash App. Cash
We
App.
don't even have it.
That's
don't
a
have it.
problem.
We don't even
You don't know if they have it.
Well, that's if you have
Yeah.
it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I said. If I got it, then you got it. If you have it, if you don't
Yeah,
have
like
it, then
I
you
do
can't
that.
get
I
it.
do that.
But-
I do that with my friends. Like if one of my friends if we want to go out somewhere and one of my friends can't afford it, be like, no, just come through. Like we'll pay. Like,
Right,
So we do
exactly.
stuff like that. Absolutely. Like I don't have like I'm saying like I've taken the time to like weed out the people who I feel like I couldn't be my whole self with. That's really important for me. Like if I can be me, like struggling and me at my best around the people who I consider my close friends. Like they're my sisters. So like I really just don't have that experience like of
And see, and
terrible people.
and even
I had it.
and even
And I let it go.
And it's funny
That's
that you
the
say,
normal,
and it's
but
funny
it's-
that you even say, that you consider them your sisters and stuff, because some people are calling people their sisters and brothers, and families are toxic too. You understand?
Yeah.
So just because you call me your sister and you call your brother, that don't mean that the relationship is all that
even
great, because people.
But even speaking to that,
You
like,
know.
it's some people who their home base is having fucked up parents,
Yeah.
siblings who they can't even talk to, it's like war every time they meet with
Absolutely,
each other.
absolutely.
And they go out and they have friendships. Like, if your home base is jacked up, how are you going out and having like great friendships with others? Like that's where the home base lies. Like so like even with being willing to talk about your problems, you can't even talk about your problems with the people you grew up with. Like and so then to
It's
turn
just
around and
ideal.
offer that up to somebody else,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that
think that's true.
that can be difficult for people. So
Yeah, but that's why people need to address their issues, and it's so important that we get.
I mean,
that-
everybody needs a therapist, in
Yeah.
my opinion. So
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the
I
problem
agree.
is. Sometimes
I-
you need a mediation.
I agree.
In
And-
between,
and a lot of people are in
navigating those.
denial of actually needing, that
Oh,
level,
I'm
of work.
glad you said that, because it shows how much the way the system is. We are now becoming so dependent on the doctors and the therapists. That's why we broke away from our. We're not looking for that help within our community, our neighbors, and things. But we stopped trusting when everybody got into gangs, and my son got into, and then everybody starts to separate.
But you know what? even trusting in your family, because sometimes your family is toxic and they have issues that they need to address. So you can't go to somebody who also has their issues and
Has their own
everybody
trauma
who
they're
have their
trying
own
to deal
right,
with.
and then
Crickets.
right.
I need help. Crickets.
Yeah, because they have their own stuff that they haven't
My
addressed, so
brother.
they can't heal for you. And then especially if everybody's
My
in
mom.
it simultaneously,
Yeah.
they can't be objective.
Right,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So sometimes the family is the issue that you need to be discussing in therapy. Is you know what I mean? It's like the family
Exactly.
that you came from. You know, and I don't think that just because you came from a toxic family means you have to necessarily be a toxic
Yeah.
friend.
I mean,
because
I
that's
agree.
like saying that a man who didn't have his father in his life can't be a good father.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I
So just
agree.
because you came from a toxic, you can still be a good friend.
Yeah.
I
I mean, it's not
that
universal, but that can be a reason why someone may not be as willing. And then it's not necessarily not being a good friend.
Right.
It's just maybe not being willing to
not
open
even
up
in
as much
nature.
as you may. Yeah, it's not in your nature to just open
even
up to people.
how you do it.
So,
Yeah, this is true because you know, like people, they're in their homes. They're on guard. So if you on guard at
All the
home,
time, yeah.
you're going to be on guard. You know, out there
Everywhere.
in out there in the world, and that's that's very very unfortunate. So
Yeah.
that's why it's like you have to study yourself, and once you start to get in touch with yourself and understand yourself, then you can now you understand, well, you know what, this is what other people need, because pretty much most human needs are pretty much the same, on a very basic level. And I think that the need for intimacy, I was like, that's just pretty basic. And I think that people start to get conditioned that, oh, this is not
They don't need it.
that
Yeah.
that they don't need it. And I was having a conversation with somebody just earlier today, and I was saying, like, even with the music, it's like when you listen to the music now, everything is so anti-love. It's like everything is like on some
agree.
fuck love shit, and I'm just like, how did we get to a place
real
where we
depressive.
yeah, like where most the attitude is really fuck
The music is
love,
like a
and I'm
meme. It's like that meme.
yeah, and I'm just like, but, back in my day, every day was singing about love with everybody, and I told somebody, I was like, you know what? I was just like, even the way people view side pieces is completely and totally different now. You understand? And I said, if you listen to a lot of the love songs of the 70s and the 80s, these motherfuckers were singing to their side pieces. They wasn't always singing to their women. Some of these songs are side pieces. And I had
Imagine Teddy.
yeah, and it was just like, now people act like they don't have no love for their side piece. Like their side piece is nothing more than a jump off and a side. And I had to break down people. I think, no, a side piece and a jump off is two totally different categories. And it's like, when you have to break down the hierarchy, I created this whole
the roles
entire.
have gotten like
I created
It's
this
all
what I
changed
call
now.
the horning flow chart. It was like, I had to break it down into steps.
it's the reality, the whole reality thing. All of those, everything got flipped. Now we're like on the flip side of what we grew up with and what we're used to or comfortable with or even expected because of our experience and our upbringing. We expected to have a little bit more, being able to navigate in these new things, but everything just kind of got flipped.
So now it's like what you were
Media.
saying about everything being so secret and underground. So like when people are having these outside relationships, it's like they don't want to talk about it because there's an element of shame that's associated with it. Where once before there was no that element of shame, is because you had the same amount of love for your side piece that you had for your wife, and you know what I mean. And it's like, so there was
You're
no
dealing
shame
with
in it because
addiction.
it wasn't
addiction.
a
Like,
legitimate
I'm addicted
relationship.
to a person. You are dealing with people's addictions, and you don't hear a lot of people speak about their addictions, and people don't usually speak about another person as being like we're playing out an addiction, like a sexual addiction.
Attachment, those toxic attachments to people. But and I think that now people have these toxic attachments is because their concepts of love and intimacy and everything has gotten so warped. So now because people aren't intimate with each other, so now it's not intimate relationships, you're having toxic attachments to these people.
Right,
so
right.
before, people didn't have anything against love, and people understand that love was infinite. So therefore, if love was infinite, you can love multiple people at the same time
that's
in a
my
legitimate.
mantra.
Yeah, you can love it.
I don't know if that was a universal agreement, but
No, I'm kidding.
no, I'm talking about the universal
Yeah,
love and
yeah.
loving several people at the same
I'm a
time.
hippie,
Like
I
I wasn't. I don't recall people like yelling from the rooftops about their side pieces. So
Because
but
you're from a different era.
you're absolutely right.
You're from a different era. If you listen, you know,
So-
so somebody had posted "Saving All My Love" by Whitney Houston, and they was just like, "Oh, this is all them wedding songs." I was just like, "This is a side piece." So "Saving All My Love" by Whitney Houston is a side piece song. Yeah, like, aren't y'all listening to the lyrics? I was like, and a lot of these songs that people think that are just love songs is no, these are side piece songs,
And that's
people
how the
are not
R-
paying
that's how the R.
attention.
Kelly-
You know,
That-
right?
Because I love to dance and party to R. Kelly songs. But when that VHS came out, it kind of got like you could hear a few and then be like, all right, I had enough R. Kelly. But I was still, you know, that someone can I start doing. I'm like, you do that again? I'll do the whole dance.
You know, I had a DJ friend, and you know, he came to me. He's like, you know, he wanted to make a Valentine's Day mix or whatever, and I said, why you? I was like, everybody does a Valentine's Day mix. I said, why don't you do a side piece mix for after then dropping it? Yeah, so I sent him a whole entire list of songs. I'm like, drop a side piece mix. I'm like, what? It's like, oh, that's so whack to do a Valentine's. Everybody does that. You know what I mean?
We don't even
really
realize
lost
he's
me on the
singing
side
along,
piece
so it
combo.
becomes
Like, I can't
subliminal.
support it.
Subliminal.
You know, it's like you don't, because
Get a side piece. Get a side piece. Who's the side piece?
and he was just like, what? And I was just like, don't worry, I'll just send you the whole list of songs and stuff, and you know, I'll send you a
gonna
whole
catch on.
and yeah, and you.
Even the guys, the DJ, they don't even realize. They
Yeah,
just,
they don't
just
even
dealing with the count of
They
the
don't
beats,
even
right?
realize it. You know what I mean? It's just like there is a whole category of music dedicated to side pieces. Just like if you just listen to the
About
lyrics.
99.9% of music.
But see, lyrics is something that's important to me. So you know what I mean. So I'm paying attention to all of that
Yeah.
stuff. People are just sitting up there thinking, "Oh, this is a love song." Nah, you scrutinize because I was always that person. You know, I open up the inside of the cassette tapes and the album and opening up,
So
and
you
I'm
can read
reading.
the
And I
lyrics.
I do that, yeah.
production matters, the instruments and who's playing what instruments, because I have certain producers, you know, that their work that I like and
Yeah.
things like that. So all that stuff really makes a difference for me. So, but anyway, so we have to really wrap this up, and this was we just was all over the place today.
But R. Kelly, very, very young girls.
This was a
Friendship,
real erotic
side
show,
piece.
but
Side piece playlist.
Real quick, very young girls, because I saw the R. Kelly, you saw the very young girls. So how
Well,
you're
quickly-
the parallel?
you know, quickly, no, it's just a showing about the sexual exploitation of young girls, you know, in New York City, and how the average age of the prostitutes is like between 12 and 13. So they're just talking to the prostitutes that's working these strips, and there's a program that's called GEMS that actually helps these young girls. So it's actually about that as well, the program.
I remember
You know,
that. Uh-huh.
yes. So that's what that documentary is about. So anyway, so we're gonna wrap up episode 2, and I thank you guys for taking part in this, and I also thank We Say What They Can't Radio and all the guys for giving me this opportunity, and that's a wrap for episode 2.
Thank you.